Apple Gift Card is a practical gift that unlocks a world of entertainment and fun. You can send it via email or give a physical card to your loved ones. Your friends and family can spend it on their favorite Apple services, including Apple subscriptions. Apple Gift Card can be used to buy all things Apple: products, accessories, apps, games, movies, TV shows, iCloud Plus, and more. Visit apple.com for details and to send Apple Gift Cards to your friends and family this holiday season.
The holidays are a time to feel and create joy. And what could be more joyous than the look on her face as she unwraps a stunning new jewelry piece from Blue Nile? How about getting 50% off your purchase? Blue Nile offers premium quality, priced below traditional retail. Their online experts are available 24/7 to answer any questions and make sure you've picked the perfect gift. For a limited time, you can get 50% off at BlueNile.com. That's 50% off at BlueNile.com.
Saturday, Christmas comes early.
Welcome to this incredible scene.
Bills.
To the end zone.
Chargers.
It's a touchdown.
An exclusive NFL game.
That's fantastic.
Live in primetime.
Wow.
Only on Peacock.
With a Christmas gift to their fans.
They're having some fun now.
Bills versus Chargers. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern. Exclusively on Peacock.
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
Anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking.
Back at it again. I'm doing my best imitation of Cody Bradley, although I cannot imitate that wonderful announcer and terrible great soccer player that Cody is. But he's not here tonight, so we can make fun of him. Well, actually, him being here doesn't stop us. But with me tonight so far, I have Robert Rusert, Mike Kuhn, Chad Smith, and David Greenwald may or may not join us, depending on whether he gets done with his pointy ball fantasy stuff.
Pointy ball, okay.
Yeah. So the big news today and main reason we just got together tonight was Daniel Salloi, new contract, 4 years. Chad, what do you think? Good, bad?
I mean, 4 years feels like a long time. I had kind of resigned myself to the fact that he was definitely going to leave. So I'm still coming to terms with it. I like Daniel. I'm a stand for Daniel. I think he obviously is capable of a lot. He was third in the MVP voting or something last year. Fantastic season. A little bit down this year, but I think he needs a striker next to him. And now hopefully he'll Valen Polito soon. So cautious optimistic.
Cool. Mike, what do you thought? What are your first thoughts today?
Well, first off, happy on goal day to everybody. We're recording this on Wednesday, which is on goal day, the day that the official purchase of the club from Lamar Hunt by On Goal LLC. So happy on goal day. I mean, in a sense, I'm the same as Chad. I wasn't sure I was resigned to him leaving, but I was not going to be surprised if he did leave, simply because of the talent that the club has in the what would be considered the front five positions, basically, with Polito coming back, Agata, Russell, Tommy, and Kinda, along with the likes of Voltaire, potentially Espinoza, Hernandez, Duke. There's a lot of guys for those front five positions, basically. And I know and that's not even mentioning Jonis as well in that situation. There's just a lot of talent there, and I thought it would be a situation where the club might let Salloi walk simply because of that.
Robert, anything to add?
Yeah, Mike, I had the same thoughts. You got to wonder, have they just not impressed enough with Johnny's, and Johnny's could be his ticket out? I don't know. Ozzy Cisneros, he's maybe in there. Is he going to be on the way out? I kind of did a roster construction for next year, and I've got 5 spots open, but that's just my take right now. But yeah, it's the glut of talent, and that's a great problem to have. So I don't mind having that problem. And Daniel, has proven again and again that he's got what it takes, and he's a quality finisher and quality player. And what I really like, what I've seen recently, is him on the defensive side. Is I think has stepped up his game. So definitely something that Kansas City needs, and Vermees likes for sure.
The defensive part is actually something that Vermees gave him a lot of credit for today. Is that that's one of the skills that he vastly improved in over the last few years, because that was sometimes why he wasn't getting on the field when people wanted him on the field. Because you got to remember, Vermees, if you don't play defense, you don't play, right, Johnny's?
Well, right, and that's another reason Johnny's could be, seeing the door. I don't know.
Yeah, I would not be totally surprised if a couple people end up leaving, but there is a really still, no matter what, if one or two of that group ends up leaving to make room or because they want better playing time, still a fairly strong attacking group there.
Definitely.
Yeah,
of course, we are assuming Polito and Kinda will come back, somewhere near where they were.
Well, I'm not assuming that.
And I mean, you say that, but I would argue that with Tommy and Agata, I think in a sense you're sort of hedging your bets in that situation, that because they both play basically the same positions that Kinda and Polito play in. So I will be interested to see how the midfield looks next year. I think the team could definitely use a new 6. Not that Voltaire's done a bad job there, but unless Vermees is going to go away from the 6 controlling everything, which he has a little bit. Voltaire's not as involved as at the 6 in terms of being the distributor all over the field that we've seen when you have a 6 back there that is like that, like Ilie, like Rossell can be. So I could see that to allow Voltaire to move up and play the 8, and that just makes the front 5 even more crowded, basically. So it's a good problem to have. Absolutely, it's a fantastic problem to have. It's just it's one of those that may work for a season, and then you're going to see some of those guys be like, hey, I want to get some more playing time, sort of thing.
Well, you don't think Peter will just rotate him around? So anything to add to that, Chad?
No, I mean the Giannis thing, I kind of was on the same boat thinking, gosh, it's like he maybe hasn't proven to be what they thought he would be yet. I think Mike could probably give us the studies towards like a record number of sub appearances. He's not starting a whole lot. I know he's subbed into like 20 games or something wild, but I think the rumor is something like 2.26 million that they paid for them, according to one of these websites that I found. So that's a lot of money to be, kind of thrown away if you don't end up using him, unless you can flip him. But who's going to buy a depressed asset? Even though he's young, he's promising. Maybe year 2 in the system, he just emerges and kind of becomes what he hasn't been.
You got to remember, he also just turned 21.
Yeah,
he's not he's not super experienced. His experience before coming here was playing in the Cypriot leagues. So I mean, he doesn't have a wealth of experience, and I mean, playing outside your home country for the first time for an extended period of time is gonna mess with anybody, basically. So I would hope Giannis gets another season and gets a chance to develop. I mean, let's face it, Johnny Russell turns 33 next year, and I mean, you in an ideal world, you're going to want to start to manage his minutes the way that you would have hoped Vermees would manage the minutes of the likes of Zuzi, Espinoza, and such this year. But I don't know if we're really getting that as much. We did a bit in the middle, which has allowed them, I think, allowed Zuzi, for example, to be as strong as he's been outside of the couple passes against San Jose. He's had some very good performances lately, basically after not playing for a while. So I would hope that we would see more rotation, especially with the talent that it appears the team has. But I mean, that's not always been Vermes' style.
Mike coming in with the jokes.
I do feel that Peter's done much better with Espinoza this year, though. I mean, Roger's been coming out a lot in the 45, 60, 65, bringing on Hernandez, a almost like for like kind of move with younger, quicker, fresher legs. So I think in that case,
Espinoza has played a lot this year, but yes, you're right that he's not being expected to go 90 minutes. So even though he is probably still considered, at least by Vermes, the starter in that 8 role, he's not being forced to go the full 90 minutes, which it's probably saving his legs a bit this year.
Agreed.
And then even if they're all back next year, I don't see how Roger can be considered a starter no matter what, because you have Remy, Kenda, Tommy, Hernandez, etc. I mean, Roger needs at that point, it needs to not be start and come off at 60. He needs to be on the bench and come on it with 20, 25 left to help close out a game if necessary.
Yeah, I really love Roger, and I think honestly he's done fantastic these last few games as the starter and come off it mostly in an appropriate time. But I was putting my story when I put out the Salloi news that I still want to see Remy at the 8. So if you got Remy, Tommy, and Kenda at those dual 8-10 spots, then you get a new 6 hopefully. Then gosh, is Hernandez 4th, and is there even a place for Roger anymore? I always kind of looked at this as his last year, but you never know if people are going to stick around. I think Zusi will definitely be around next year. I'm not as confident about Roger.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I don't think there is room in a sense for Roger, like you said, Chad. But I mean, think about it. Is there a place for Cam Duke if we're assuming Voltaire is going to be an 8? Is there? What is Cisneros? He can play some right wing, right? Dispel Russell, maybe. Pierre can play there too, right? But what about Jake Davis? Is there a spot, at an 8 for him? So we talk about playing these young guys, and we've gotten in some young guys with the under 22 initiative, but those guys, where are they going to fit in? Duke, Davis, Cisneros.
Yeah, I agree. Duke feels kind of like the odd man out. I feel like you got to pick up his option just because still has potential. He's also 21 to go back to the youth thing. Maybe he should just be an every game starter for SKC2 and see if he can, find a place, find a home to be ready to step up first team. He's been good enough off the bench. It's like you wouldn't want to rely on him as a starter, and I don't even know that you'd want him as your first sub.
But then again, as we mentioned earlier, do Kenda and Polito come back 100%?
Yeah, usually it's a couple of years off his bad catastrophic knee injuries, right? Like before they're themselves again.
There's a lot to be seen in that still. And just for going back to Giannis for a moment, one thing we forgot to mention, I think, was that he still never went to a training camp with his team because he came in so late. So he's been the entire year just trying to play catch up to learning language, system in a foreign country, and being thrown into some not great situations and trying to make the most of it. So I do think he comes back and he improves at least 50% next year. That's just I don't know how I would quantify that.
He's learning to defend. He's learning the system Vermes wants on the fly, basically, is what he's having to do without the preseason. And I mean, we know how we've talked already about how Vermes expects you to defend from the front. So coming in late to that process hurt him in terms of development and style this season. But then again, he's still getting time. It's not like he's not getting on the field. He may not be getting a lot of time, but I mean, it says something. He like Chad mentioned, he's made 20 subs across all competitions this year. He's played in over half the games, so he's getting time. He's got the talent. It's just he's got to adjust to the system, basically.
Well, as Thad has mentioned, it's more than talent. What we don't see is what are Johnny's habits on a regular basis. What are his habits in training? What's his attitude? And the sub appearances show that they're in the proper place. But if you want to argue doesn't know the system, has had to try to learn it, Well, then you look at Agata and Tommy and say, well, they fit right in perfectly. So
Yeah, and a guy like 22 as well. It's not like he's an old man, so he's really sparked this thing. But there's different responsibility. Obviously, there's different responsibilities for the center forward and what they have to do, and then what they expect out of a winger in this system versus some other systems don't play their wingers the same way, obviously.
And then Tommy being a little bit older, but I was actually going to make that same point, Robert. But I think that speaks more to the class and quality of Tommy and Agata than it does to the lack of that with Giannis. I mean, that's not a criticism on him. It just speaks to the how much Tommy brings. I mean, when we had a pod the other day, that was exactly, I was like, Tommy's been the best one. Agata gets a lot of the notice because of the goals, but Tommy has been he's raised that midfield so much more than what I think anybody else has been able to do lately.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Since we're rebuilding this roster, one more move at the forward line, I wonder how you all are feeling is Kyrie Shelton has an option year for 2023. Is he your first winger off the bench in the next season, or is he making way so someone like Johnny's can get on? Mike is shaking his head hard.
Well, here's how I'm going to put it. And I thought about this earlier today, the wording to use. Talent-wise, Kyrie doesn't fit. Also, another aspect of that, I think, the emotional energy of this team, I think, is impacted by some of the situations. You can read into that what you want. And I don't think the emotional energy is a positive. So I think just getting rid of that, you care about a person, you care about an individual, but you've also got a responsibility to your team. So that's a determining factor in my mind.
What's the dollar amount?
That's what I was just looking up. His cap, according to the Players Union, he was on 350,000 this past year. So, I mean, that alone is that cap hit alone, you can go get a right back if you're not convinced by Pierre or Zuzi. You can get
center
back, but then I personally don't expect Fontas to be back. So that opens up almost $1 million when you include the TAM that he's taking up. So I wasn't going to go center back simply because I already have that money somewhere else to devote to a center back in my mind. Maybe you throw that at a 6 or to help offset the cost of a new 6. Maybe you do that for extra wing depth or something. I don't think it's Shelton, unfortunately. I'm sure he's a great guy. It's just the circumstances this year. He was thrown to the wolves and he just didn't perform.
He was devoured by those wolves.
If you want to use the analogy, he did not perform, and that was the main issue. I mean, we've already seen that it's likely, barring an injury to Agata, he's not going to start another game this year.
I would agree with that. And I think back to maybe what Robert was alluding to, maybe, I'm not certain if I was reading between the lines correctly, maybe it would just be good for his mental health to be somewhere else. It's so much negativity surrounds him here. Like, obviously, he's got a significant other here, and he seems like a great human here, and he's involved in all this awesome stuff off the field, but just on the field, it hasn't been what the team wants. And all those stats from all those years of he makes all the other guys better around him, it seems to have vanished in 2022. And I agree with Mike. You got to put that 350,000 somewhere else.
Well, and to use another example, not that he had done as bad here in his final year, but Ilie. Ilie, I mean, for everybody seems to have the hindsight glasses on when it comes to Ilie this year and what he could have done to help this team. Forget how much Ilie struggled at times last year. Ilie, for as good as he is and how great he's been for LAFC this year, he needed that change of scenery.
And a different system.
Yeah,
a different system.
Yes, yeah, and a different system. Whether it was the kick in the ass of being told of Vermes of him not being wanted back, of his option being declined, whether that did it, or I'm sure that played a part. But yes, the system, the the being considered excess goods, basically, all that can help motivate a player to be good in their next stop. And I don't think it'll hurt Kyrie in that situation. If he just needs to change the scenery at this point, I think.
You think he goes to another MLS team, or?
I think his numbers this year will scare off a lot of MLS teams from wanting to bring him in. The way he looked, I think it's going there might be, especially with another expansion team coming in, but I would not be surprised if he is not in MLS next year.
Yeah, I wish him well. I'm not going to really comment too heavily either way, because I could see the case for keeping him. I can see the case for not picking up his option, but in whichever way it goes, I just wish him really the best, because he is really, really the super nice guy. And a lot of people complain about him, but I've never gotten the feeling that he wasn't putting out a great effort. It's just that the effort was failing, whether it was lack of confidence, some other injury, some mental issue, whatever it was. It just wasn't working this year where it did in previous years, at least benefited others, not as much as himself.
All right, so we rebuilt the team of the forwards. Well,
yeah, I mean, just because Mike had to bring up the center backs, damn you. What if Fontes came back?
Robert brought.
I'm the one who mentioned it first. Yeah.
I just wanted to see if you spit out your beer when I called out your name. If Fontes would come back for $500,000, 250,000, 450,000, $1 million is a high price for him right now. But he's also been the guy who's kind of picked up the creativity from the six at times. He's been the one that's making some of the longer passes. He's been making some very scary runs into the opponent's 18 at times.
He's a goal scorer, Thad. He needs to get in the box.
Yeah, he's tied for sixth on the team. So
yeah, something like that. If you go back to Port Kyrie, he's got 2 more goals than that guy. So.
Oh man, you just got to pile on, don't you?
I know. I'm so mean. He's such a nice person.
But back to Fontes, do you keep him if he's for a cheaper price?
Are you expecting him to be the starter? Because the thing to also remember with him is he turns 33 this year. He turns 33 in November. Yes, but he
wasn't a center back because he was fast.
Yeah, his athleticism is not what they were needing.
Yeah, well, yes, the athleticism can't recede much more, but at the same time, he's had a history of injuries with his lower extremities, I guess is the best way to put it. And because it
almost sounds like a euphemism that we should R-rate this podcast, Mike.
He's had a number of leg injuries over the course of his career, especially here in Kansas City. Can you now, yes, that's limited the number of games he's played, which could in theory extend his career, but at the same time, when do the injuries catch up with him? Basically, I guess is the question. When do they cause the remaining athleticism that he has to take a dip? I mean,
he saved a couple of years on his legs, man.
You guys laugh, but you can't argue that point. He's not overly athletic to begin with, and can you expect him to maintain the level that he's at going into next season? I don't think you can.
Robert, you need to chime in now.
Yeah, I think Fontes at a lower price, I could see that could be beneficial. However, not as a starter. And the theory here in my mind is a superior center back can raise this team's ceiling significantly. We don't have that right now. If we can sign some guy who can be that ceiling raiser, can make a huge difference for this team. So that's my hope. That's my prayer.
Well, I mean, I know Matt Doyle has his friends and his enemies on all over soccer, basically. But his point when he did the fantasy article the other day about if you could bring back one player from your club's past in their prime to your team, who would it be? and he picked Ike Opara. And I can't argue that point. There are 4 players that he's one of 4 that in that general mindset that I would have picked. And all 4 of them were center backs in my mind, unless I could bring back an in prime Espinoza. The 4 are Beasler, Opara, Colin, and Conrad. Those, if I could bring back any one player in their prime, it would be one of those 4 to this team, because center back fixes an elite center back fixes a lot of the defensive issues in this team.
And let's not forget, there could be 2 center back openings. Issy is on an option year for 2023. They could choose to step away from his also $1 million contract. So a lot of money. I doubt it, but they could.
Honestly, he's one I would allow Izzy to go before I allowed Fonte to go, but I'd only want to keep Fonte with a cheaper price tag. So I would allow both of them to go if they did not come down.
Unless you're expecting Volader to be a starter, I don't think that we're going shopping for 2 starting center backs this winter.
I understand, but a lot of, in my opinion, in my mind, and is a lot of those free guys running into the box were right off of Izzy's shoulders, not Fontes's. Not that Fontes has been perfect in any way, shape, or form. I think he's been what he is and what he's good at, but to me, it just has felt like there's been a lot of them off at Izzy's shoulders that had that free headers, especially in the middle of the year. Maybe a 6 could have done better. Maybe somebody else could have done better, but they seemed to, a lot of them, be 3 feet away from Izzy when they scored that header.
I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I'm just saying I can't see us bringing in 2 new starters next year. That's my only problem with the idea, is that Issy and Fontas going only makes sense if you're expecting Volader to start next year,
or Courtney Ford.
Right. Chad and I are in agreement, man.
Look at us. Team Chad.
I will go on record as disagreeing about Izzy. Just have to say that.
Well, go ahead, man. Tell us why
Defend
we're
him. Defend him.
Oh, I've been defending him all season. So on this podcast. So
go back and listen.
I don't need to say anymore.
Yeah, you do, because people can't go back and listen to every pod. Give us a 30-second reason why we suck.
I think what you said, Chad, I'm sorry, not Chad, Thad, about it being other people's responsibilities that were not taken care of, that Izzy seemed to be at fault at when he really wasn't. And I've broken it down in a couple articles. So I think Izzy, some people have blamed him for not trying at times. And I watch him play and I'm like, what are you, crazy? Are you watching a different guy than I am? But, he's not a prime time, or really in Colin, he's not a prime time, whoever you want to pick, but he's a quality center back who can play in MLS. He's an MLS level center back, and I'd rather keep him over Fontes if I had to choose.
Yeah, and what we haven't really gotten to see is him and Ford together. I think they had 5 minutes on the field together in one game before Izzy got headbutted into oblivion and taken out for a little while. So I wouldn't mind seeing those 2 together, because Ford is really the athlete, the going up, clearing balls, like kind of running all over the place. And Izzy, we don't give him a lot of credit, actually quite good at passing, and I think he has got some sneaky long balls in his golf bag, so to speak.
I don't think he's at the level that they want to be the distributor, though. I don't. If you're going with Ford and
he's better than Ike Opara ever was.
I'm not disagreeing there, but but Opara had Beasler or occasionally Fontas next to him. Vermes has always paired his athletic center back with a passer. Yeah. And EC in the system right now, EC is that athletic center back, and Fontas is the passer. Ford, EC, if you're going to do that, you then jump up and you're working on that 6, and you're finding a passer in the 6 to replace Voltaire, to push Voltaire up the field, which then causes more depth in the front 5, which was where we started this whole conversation tonight.
And I think sometimes he gets credit for being the athletic one just because he's standing next to Fontes and he just looks a lot more athletic, but I don't think he's anywhere near the level of like Ford's athleticism or even Opara's athleticism when he was here. Robbie, your eye roll told me maybe other.
He's more athletic than you think, and yes, he looks even more athletic next to Fontas, but he is the quote unquote athletic one in this center back pairing.
And he's also a lot smarter than some people give him credit for.
Yeah.
That's probably true as well.
Yeah. I don't know that I've ever criticized him for being smart or not smart, rather, but
Yeah.
it's and I know that's why when I criticized him earlier about it seemed like there was always the guy who scored the open header was 3 feet away from him. That's why I also mentioned that a lot of times it may have been other people's original fault. But just like giving up a goal falls to the goalie, giving up an open shot in the
Right.
box falls on the center back. Giving
The-
up across from the corner is the outside back's fault, no matter what.
I'll give another analogy to compare that situation if you want to with EC. Go back to 2014 and how poor Aurelian Collin looked when he had Igor Juliao next to him. How
Yeah.
much he had to push out to help cover for Juliao's defending deficiencies, I guess is the best way to put it.
His
And
indiscretions.
and then allowed that passing lane between him and Beasler to open up a lot more. I would need to go back and watch more game film on EC to see if it's really that situation, or if it's a different situation, pushing up, pushing to cover Fontas, pushing Fontas aside, where it is. But Thad's right in that movement, covering in other places leaves openings in the other areas, and EC may be covering for somebody else in those situations. It's like I said, it's one of those things I'd have to go back and I'd have to rewatch tape, and I really don't want to rewatch some of the games from this year.
I do think that a lot of times he was covering for whoever was the 6 or an 8 that was not maybe getting back as much as they should have at that particular time. Again, that's defending Izzy in this case, because I'm not laying all criticism on him by any means. At least I'm not meaning to.
I mean, like you said, I'll make the point again that the midfield defensive issues have been an issue for a long time.
Yep.
And they still have not been fully remedied.
Robert, you can you know that many times throughout this year I've said it's not the defense's fault or the forward's fault, it's the midfield's fault because of a lot of the woes this year, because they were not able to connect forward, they were not able to defend the back line. I do think with Tommy there, that's helped a lot in the last couple of games, because that guy is a machine and smart and everywhere. And they also have a person up front that they can get the ball to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back, and man, I don't want to do this in one way, but I got to. When we were talking about Shelton earlier, Peter's always like defended him all these years when people would criticize him. But all of a sudden now that Agata's here, one of the things he consistently says about Agata is, well, you have a guy that can score. You have a guy that, goes forward. You have a guy that can control the ball and hold it and lay it off. And he mentions all these things that somebody else was supposedly able to do, at least some of those things in the past. So I think Peter's always known this. He just couldn't criticize his own player until he has a player that can now replace them.
Well, I think it was also the fact that in the past with Shelton, you still got a handful of goal contributions from him. You got a handful of assists, a handful of goals, and you didn't get that at all. You haven't gotten it at all this year from him. I mean, he has 1,300 minutes in league play and has 1 goal contribution. He has 1 assist, and that came from the wing. Don't forget, that came from a cross into the box. That was his 1 assist this year. So the mindsets change, especially when the player that in the past you defended isn't doing the stuff that you were able to you were able to say he may not score, but he does this, and this well. Shelton hasn't been holding the ball up well, hasn't been connecting with his teammates well. I mean, how many passing charts have we seen from this year where Shelton's passing map is incredibly small? He wasn't getting the passing, he wasn't getting the hold up. He's just not doing the little things that made him so successful and allowed Vermes to defend him the last few years.
And Peter's always very good about not throwing guys under the bus in general. Like, people will ask, why don't you ask this question? Why don't you ask that question of Peter? And it's like, he's not going to toss these guys under the bus. Like, every once in a while, he might use some sort of motivational tactic. Like I think he was trying to use on Giannis when he's saying he loves going forward. He loves having the ball at his feet. But I wish he would run when he didn't have the ball. I wish he'd run off the ball. So it's like, I think it's stuff he's probably saying to him behind the scenes, trying to nudge him and motivate him and maybe make us shut up that are saying, why is Johnny's not starting? Get that man in the game. So yeah, a little subtle jab at us maybe.
Well, two things to bring this somewhat full circle. How important is Salloi to this team that led to a discussion about all these things? Number one. Number two, if we see Ben Sweat and Andre Fontes as our back left side of our defense next year, that's worst case scenario. Let's please hope that doesn't happen.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Sweat had a good game against San Jose. I will give him that.
He's had some good moments, a couple good games.
He should not be the long-term starter at left back. He should not be there at the start of the season. He should not.
I don't think he was supposed to be.
Nope.
I don't think he was either. I think it was Ndembe got hurt and then they went on a run, and we know how Vermes loves to stick with what works.
Yeah, you don't change those stinky socks. You don't wash them. That'll break the luck. Sweaty socks? Oh, that would have been better. Dang it. Oh. Do we want to sneak a little Kansas City Current in here real fast before we run out of time? Haley Mace, national team, playing on Saturday at Children's Mercy Park with the women.
12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that. I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Will you be in the press box?
I will be with my family. My daughter loves some U.S. women's national team. She'll probably be rocking her Alex Morgan jersey. Like lots of 10-year-old girls. Hey, it's okay. It is what it is. I'll try to convince her to get a Haley Mace jersey next time around.
And I hopefully we'll have a women's team, national team focus pod coming out here shortly. So sometime in the next day. I'll probably post this one first because the other will take much more editing.
Oh, I wasn't invited to that. I'd love to talk about that sometime, Dan.
Actually, I couldn't invite anybody to it.
Oh,
he wasn't allowed.
Top secret.
No. Just the way you have to deal with these things at times. I'll explain more later. It's just convoluted. Any last words, gentlemen? We have about 2 minutes or less left in our free Zoom session because I don't want to pay for the damn thing.
This LA Galaxy team is a talented side, especially with their new additions. I think we can go in and steal a victory, but the Galaxy are improving.
Welcome back, Daniel. I'm glad you're here, and I hope it all works out for you. You got 1 goal last week, so the floodgates, they're about to open, right?
Well, he's tied for second, right? Right now.
Yeah, but it got us tied is the third leading goal scorer, and he's only played like 6 games.
So I will say this is my final point. Salloi is 8.5 goals over his 4-year contract, not counting any goals the rest of this season. 8.5 goals per season from passing Preki,
which would be a feat. And I think that he would love to be the guy who does that.
I think he would too. I'm not sure he does, but 8.5 over a 4-year season, given how even if he runs hot cold, I think that is well within his reach. And
then plus the extended contract after that. So, and most likely
he's only 26 right now. They're going to re-up him again one more time, right?
Most likely for Daniel, it'll be 12 goals 1 year, 3 goals the next year, 13 the next year, 6 the next year, and
that gets him there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're about out of time. I am very happy Salloi's back. He's one of my favorite interviews because he speaks more honestly than most people does, and will actually drop a couple of cuss words once in a while. And I mean, Johnny might, but nobody actually understands him. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Greenwald, you missed out. Sorry, bud. Thanks, everybody.
Go Sporting.
Woo!
Sipping back on empty can. I don't give a damn if it's 9 a.m. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. skipper has just been sent off. Some point of strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking.